Colton Pond, so good to have you here.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Austin. Are you? What do you think so far? Like, how's it
It's
going?
good. I've been here a good amount over the past like 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Good weather. I'm glad it's not July, August, and boiling hot. But yeah, it's good to be
It's a
here.
good time of year now. Yeah, this time of year, you don't want to be here in July.
Nope.
Where's home for you?
New York City.
Is that home? Like
In
grow up home?
And I've been there the past 2 years. Spent 5 years before that in Miami, and then before that was in Salt Lake City.
Awesome. So you live some different places.
Very Utah. I tell people, mountains in Utah to the beach in Miami to like the city in New York.
Yeah.
Like fundamentally different people live in those different cities.
Well, I can't wait
too.
to talk to you in a few years. Maybe it'll be somewhere else or
Maybe Hawaii, maybe somewhere cool.
Right.
We'll see.
And you're with Loan Pro.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about Loan Pro.
Yeah, so Loan Pro been around for 14 years. Cool origination story in that 3 brothers were co-founders, and they owned an auto dealership, car loans.
Mm-hmm.
And what they found is like there was this gap between prime and subprime that wasn't servicing the market. They said we can sell more cars if we lend to these people. We're like, well, let's figure out lending, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they started lending, fell in love with lending, but realized a lot of the financial infrastructure within lending was archaic and challenging to be able to drive innovation. So they set off on a journey to create their own lending platform. So we've been around 14 years, bootstrapped the business from that day. Today, modern lending and credit platform. So we're the platform that financial organizations use to launch, service, and manage virtually any class of loans, line of credit, or credit card. So folks like SoFi, Chime, Intuit, Best Egg run their loan servicing, loan management on Loan Pro today.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's a cool story. So I started in automotive, but I spent many years in automotive. So love to maybe unpack that at some point. That's the automotive lending business is like a whole crazy business. And when you talk about the split between prime and that gap between prime and subprime, lots there.
Yeah.
Sounds super interesting.
Yeah, there is lots.
So tell us a little bit about like the market you serve. You mentioned a few clients. Like, is there a spectrum, like earlier stage, major, like big brands in between?
So it's less along org size, it's more along priorities. So we've got big companies like Intuit, one of the biggest companies in the US. All Intuit QuickBooks lending goes through Loan Pro, to like small startups. Like there's a small startup actually based in LA, Aero Finance, and they do credit cards for folks that have no credit, zero credit, and help them build credit. And they just starting off. So like a good spectrum in between. It's more around the problems we solve. So it really comes down to 2 areas. Folks that want to modernize their tech stack and drive greater operational efficiency with driving greater automation and their lending processes. And folks who want to innovate. Folks who want to launch truly differentiated loan credit programs. So an example, we have a credit card that a credit union that we partner with, we've been talking about, and they service military members. So they came to us with a problem. They said, hey, we have a problem. We service military members. Say it's husband, wife, and 2 kids, and husband is a military member, and he goes on deployment. We have a secondary relationship with wife and kids. And typically when they go on deployment, they like leave and go bank somewhere else. And they're like, how do we make our card more sticky? So we're working with them to launch what we call an active military duty card, where when military member goes on deployment, we'll geofence a 5-mile radius around their house back home. And any gas and groceries purchased while the military member's on deployment is at a 3% interest rate. And we will interest abate emotional wellness purchases for 12 months or for the time period that they're on deployment. So you can start creating unique credit and lending programs that differentiate, stand out in the market. So really it's around how do you modernize, drive operational efficiency, and how do you innovate and drive growth.
So can you describe, are you creating that for the clients, or is it a API system or the software that they're?
Both.
It's both. Okay.
So we have some. So Loan Pro is API first. So we have some customers that just use our API infrastructure and they build the front end themselves, and some that come to us and say, generally the bigger ones want to do that. They want to own the UI. Then we have some that come and say, hey, we want to use your UI and your APIs, and great. We have a stack that will let them go from loan servicing, collections, and payments, and tracking all the life cycle events and everything there.
With as fast as fintech is going, like how are you guys following that or leading that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you are.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a couple of examples. Like it's growing so fast. I guess how are you finding yourselves inside of that with Loan Pro and the brand?
I think the superpower of fintech is nimble ability to be able to move fast and change towards market conditions. And that's something that banks and credit unions can't do on purpose because their margin for error is very small. Fintechs can because their margin for error is a lot bigger and they don't have much to lose. Where they struggle, though, is compliance and how to drive compliance. That's why we've seen this tension between sponsor banks and fintechs at a degree. So what we're trying to do is we have a platform that's built compliance at the core and won't let actions outside of compliance happen. Like Card Act compliant, there's certain regulations in Card Act compliance, and you can't do an action if you're using Loan Pro that will make you outside of that regulation. But what we're also doing is enabling fintechs to move fast and innovate and launch new card programs and lending programs. So a top 3 neobank that we partner with today, they launched their first lending product in market within 4 weeks. Signed a contract, 4 weeks later, they had a program in market.
Wow. So they're deploying fast. Wow.
And like how to test new markets. So, Intuit came to us for that reason, for that purpose initially.
Yeah.
Like how do we test new markets and how do we explore, could we be lending in this area, and what about this type of lending, and see what works and quickly pivot to away from what isn't working towards what's working.
What are some of the biggest challenges you guys are up against now as you look towards the future?
So I'll say some of the biggest challenges our customers are facing now that we're trying to solve. One is cost of capital, especially within fintech lending or non-chartered financial institution lending where they don't have a balance sheet that they're lending against. Cost of capital has skyrocketed, which has caused some like problems on margins and profitability and things like that. And then the other aspect is like how to be more efficient, and it ties together with this, but how to be more efficient with less. So how to do more with less. And a lot of that is there's a lot of manual processes you've done before that you can automate. And how do you automate those processes? Just make the process end-to-end more efficient.
Yeah. Awesome. What's something folks don't know about Loan Pro that you'd like them to know?
Great question. So a lot of folks, I'll say, traditionally knew Loan Pro, we've been around 14 years, as a loan management system. And over the past 5 years, especially, we've really transformed to say, no, we're a modern lending and credit platform. So we have folks that launch full revolving credit card on Loan Pro to like small personal loans, and anywhere from big commercial loans to small personal to SMB and SBA. But it's really that one unified platform that helps drive all of your lending credit cards.
Yeah, it's so cool. It sounds like you guys are up to some super interesting stuff.
We are.
So for someone like you who's been in it a bit, learned a ton, I'm sure. Like I'm learning stuff every day, talking with folks like you.
Awesome.
What advice might you give someone that might be thinking about coming into the fintech space?
Buckle up. Things change so quickly. That's why I love it personally, is because a lot of people talk about 2023 with all the change. They're like, oh, I'm glad that's over. I'm like, no, if you feel that way, you're in the wrong industry. Like, fintech is in a unique spot because it's combining innovation with compliance, because financial services are highly regulated and they're regulated for a reason, and trying to merge those two often are at odds, but they don't need to be. So my advice would be, if you like change, if you like, things, if you're good with things changing quickly, great, you're in the right spot. And if that gets exciting to find opportunities based on the change, that's what you need to do.
So what do you think's next? Like if you look 5 years down the road, I know we're magic ball here. What do you see?
Embedded finance, embedded lending continuing to take off. So you have these brands with captive audiences. Airlines have done this for a really long time. Like Delta has me on my American Express, and I run all my spending through Delta. Delta is just the front and face for American Express on a marketing engine. And I believe more and more embedded finance will occur, and you'll have these brands where it will be the bank on the back end serving financial services products through these brands that have these captive audiences within them. There's some issues to figure out from a regulatory compliance perspective that we've seen over the past year, but especially in 5 years, I see a lot of that being figured out. And financial services more embedded within everyday brands that we consider part of our identity.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thank you.
So nice to meet you. I know you're really busy. Craziness at South by.
Yep.
FinTech House is.
Always fun.
Oh my
Jason always
gosh.
puts on a good time.
Yes, he does. He
Yeah.
does. We're glad to be part of it. Well, thank you so much, Colton. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
My brother.